All right. Good evening. Good evening. And welcome to all that are present. This is Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote. We'll be supporting and uplifting our Black women politicos in this space, offering advice and tips and support and all the things that we typically do as a part of Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote. My name is Holly Holiday, and I'm the president of Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote. I'm joined by my colleagues and two other amazing women who contribute greatly to the political space, Bree and Chantel. And together, we're going to just be in this space with you, supporting you, and offering the best advice that we can. So, this is a kind of interesting space. So, I want to start off by inviting all of you who may be watching or listening to this to introduce yourselves in the chat. If you don't put it in the chat, we don't know you're there. We want to use this space as a place to connect and get to know each other a little better. Also, feel free to liberally use the chat as it relates to any questions or comments you might have. We'll get started with introductions now and encourage you to do the same, again, using the chat feature. So let me start with Bree. Bree, please introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your political background.
Well, hello everyone. I am Bree Maxwell and I am from South Carolina. I'm currently in the capital city of Columbia. And a little bit about my political background is the latest campaign that I did. I was working on Jamie Harrison, who was running for United States Senate, where I was his political director, basically a pseudo campaign manager in a nutshell. Also, I worked for Congressman Clyburn, the majority whip, where I was his executive assistant and scheduler. So everywhere that you saw him within South Carolina, I scheduled that. I have worked on numerous small races in the state of South Carolina. I also have my own consulting firm where I also run political campaigns. I do advocacy work and community relations. And currently, I work with Holly as her national political programs director. So that's just a little bit about me and what I have done in the political space.
All right. Well, thank you. And as you can see, we have a wealth of knowledge on this stage. Chantel, introduce yourself and give us your background.
Thank you, Holly. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chantel Mullen. I am probably a late bloomer to the political space. Um, I've actually spent the majority of my career as an attorney, and I kind of fell into politics because all my friends are into politics. And one day, one of them decided to run for office and said, "Hey, will you run my campaign?" And so I have been working on small campaigns, school board elections, just finished up an Atlanta City Council race, currently working on a judicial race out of Arkansas. And so I have been working on those probably the last 7 years. I also do other work in the political space. So when I'm not working on campaigns, I'm actually doing voter protection work. And so I have worked the voter protection hotline. I have actually monitored polling stations for legal issues. I actually trained during the 2020 election cycle. I trained people to go out and chase ballots. So and actually, um, uh, if there was a ballot that was rejected, I trained people how to go out and notify people and actually help them get their ballot counted. So I did about 2,500 people during the 2020 election cycle. I'm also a member of my local party. So, in all of these people running for office, I decided to, I'd already joined my local party, but I decided to run for office. So, I am now a party official. So,
All right. And I didn't share my political background, but I've actually been engaged in politics for a little, well, really most of my life. I'm actually a third generation politician. My grandfather was an elected official, as was my father. My brother and I broke the trend, but definitely have been deeply involved in politics most of my life. I usually tell people that I've done everything you could possibly do on a campaign, from a volunteer all the way up to manager, donor. I've even had the opportunity in my lifetime to be an institutional campaign organizer, meaning I've worked for organizations that ran hundreds of campaigns at one time, and got involved that way. And so I think between the three of us, we kind of can cover any and all things. Our goal here is to really encourage and inspire and connect Black women into politics. It is not an easy space to be in, as we know, for Black women. And I also wanted to bring a wealth of different experiences, because I will also tell you, as a person who grew up in Missouri, that they were not coming to Missouri looking for me as a Black woman working in politics. And so, we bring this kind of different experience to the table. And we just want to recognize that part and understand how hard it is. Asari, we see you in the chat. Thank you for introducing yourself. I've worked in Florida a couple of times, more than a couple of times over the course of my career. So I know being in Tallahassee, especially during the legislative session, can be a little bit harrowing as well. Um, so if you or other people there, encourage you also to introduce yourselves in the chat. I want to get started. Chantel, you actually made me think about something really crucial, which is how people got started in politics. Bree, what's your political origin story? How'd you get started? What made you decide this was an area you wanted to work in?
So it's a funny story. So I do not come from a political family at all. All they do is vote and call it a day and blame the Republicans for everything. So
As
with
you
me,
should.
so with me, it was in high school. It was in my AP government class. This was the year that Bush and Gore had ran against each other. And I got in trouble because I literally told the class, that was voter fraud and Gore should have actually won the election.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sent to the principal's office, got in trouble, and my mother was like, you haven't figured out what you want to major in yet, but at this point, I think you need to major in political science because if you keep down this path, you're going to keep getting in trouble. So after that, in high school, we have to have, in order to get early dismissal, you have to have an internship. So my
Yeah.
internship was with my family's attorney, but also in his office was the local bail bondsman, and he was running for sheriff at
Oh.
the time. So he was like, if you can get X amount of people to tell you that they will vote for me, I'll pay you $5 per person. So I managed to make about $400 doing that. And I was like, if this is what it takes to do campaigns, I'm going to do this forever. So after
Oh,
that,
wow.
yeah. So after that, when I went to South Carolina State, I worked to make sure that we got students registered to vote on campus. I also worked in the Orangeburg community to get people registered to vote, and I worked on election day. I worked at the polling sites. Then once
Yeah.
I graduated, I got involved with the South Carolina Democratic Party. I worked on Hillary's campaign for a little bit, and it was just up from there. That's how I got involved, and then I just stayed involved at that point.
Yeah, that's that. It's it's amazing. I think a lot of us get involved, not just through our friends and associations, but really through our passion to try to make things better for the community. And I think that's what draws a lot of us into this space.
Mhm.
And so that's the upside. I want to also note and thank Bree. If you're interested in being a part of the Sisters Lead Sisters Vote Network, we really work to support Black women in politics at every level, to amplify and expand their political leadership. We recognize as Black women that we deal with politics, whether we want to or not, at the intersection of both racism and sexism. And Sisters Lead Sisters Vote fully believes that Black women's leadership is essential
Mhm.
to creating a space where our communities are improved. So
Holly,
really encourage you to do that. Yes, ma'am.
um, while we're mentioning that, I'd also like to mention that if you visit the Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote website, we have a survey for Black women who have run for office. So if you are a Black woman who has run for office in 2021 or 2022, we would love for you to take our survey. And
Yep.
so, or if you know someone who has run for office in either of those years, it's a quick survey, and we would love to have your feedback because it'll help us develop programming for our sister leaders who are running for office. So I will drop that link in the chat as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much for mentioning that. And just in any way, if you want to connect with us, definitely check out our website at sistersleadsistersvote.org. And research is an important part of the work that we do. And one of the reasons that we've engaged in it is because we recognize the deficit in research in our races, in our community, in our leadership. And data is an important part of driving our experience. So, your participation in that survey or helping us to find folks to participate in that survey really will help us all improve the atmosphere for Black women in politics. So, we've talked about the inspiration, we've given folks a chance to engage. Thank you very much for dropping that in, Chantel. Now, I think it's time that we really deal with some truths, some hard truths, and how we're managing that. And so, what are some of the challenges that you all have experienced in being Black women working in politics? And, I hate to just leave people with a problem and not give them an opportunity to think about how they work through that, and share a little bit about how you worked through some of those things. Chantel, let's start with you. What are some of the challenges you've experienced being a Black woman in this space?
Well, um, not coming from, I mean, I have friends who are in politics, and I've probably been around politics in some form, shape, or fashion the majority of my life. But even doing that and and being around people, no one ever really grabbed me and said, "Hey, do you know that those skills would be valuable over here?"
Mhm.
So, the first thing is that people really don't grab Black women and just pull them in. Now
Mhm.
that I'm in this space, I'm seeing, kind of how other people are being pulled in, which is why I am intentional about bringing in young Black people into politics very early. So, as
Yeah.
I was working on this last campaign, one of the things that I did was created an internship program. And so I reached out to a local high school and asked the principal to send me some Black students. And then I reached out to a professor at one of our local HBCUs,
Mhm.
the political science professor, and asked her to send me some students as well. So
Mhm.
I had about 4 to 6 students working on the campaign at any time. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to give them as much exposure as early as possible, but also give them references, connect them with other people, just so that they could see that this is actually a career pathway.
Yeah.
So that's the next thing is a lot of times you hear about Black women and volunteer in politics. We are often the last ones that they talk to about money and contracts. And
Mhm.
so there's tons of money in politics. There's tons of contracts in politics. Um, and so that has kind of my second thing. Lastly, I feel like because I'm coming to this kind of late, I think if I had started out in politics, I may have a different perspective. But as finished up campaigns, I have other people coming to me saying, "Hey, will you run my campaign? Will you do this?" So now I'm trying to figure out, can I actually make a living at this full time? And is it going to afford me the life that I have been accustomed to? Or where can I make cuts and changes? Because the ebb and flow of politics is going to be very different. So if I'm working on a campaign, the money is going to look different. If I'm going to work for an organization, the money is going to look different. So these are kind of the things that I have weighed out, along with, as I'm a lawyer, not just working on a campaign, I'm actually weighing, do I want to go work on voting rights litigation? So all of those things are things that, I think as Black women going to this, those are some of the ones that have just kind of weighed heavy with me.
Yeah, I love that. First, I just think the idea of really, in any way you can, in any way within your span of influence and sphere of control, that as Black women, it is so important that we're always looking for the opportunity to bring other people of color, Black people, Black women into the space. And that actually we're not even really adding our full value if we're not spending some intentional time doing just that. And so I love that you led with, you know, you did what you could in the space that you had to introduce politics to others. Because whether or not they choose politics as a career, I bet those young people are now forever going to be engaged. And I think that, that's definitely a tip that we should all embrace. Because when there's more of us in the room, then it's more likely the option and the chance that opportunities will be afforded to people who look like us and have our lived experience. The second thing you said that I really want to dig into a little bit too and just highlight is that, politics is not only a viable career path, meaning that there are jobs in politics, but politics is also a viable business path. I've been engaged in politics as a consultant myself since 2010. So it is totally possible to make a living at it. But just like all businesses, it is hard. And you do have to be really focused on who your clients are and delivering services at the top level. But it is definitely a career option worth exploring. And the third thing you brought up, which is also important, is politics does have a rhythm and a cycle to it, literally has a cycle to it. But the other thing that I learned being in politics is that elections happen all the time. And so you can't get caught up in just looking at the federal elections, which operate on a 2 or 4 year cycle or a 6 year cycle if you're in the Senate. But think about those local elections, city council races, county commission races, which happen a lot more frequently. And you really have to think about it even broader than just a single geographic territory sometimes. Um, Bree, tell us, what are some of the challenges that you faced and how have you overcome them?
So my first challenge was when I was president of Young Democrats of South Carolina. The
Mm.
challenge with that was people didn't think I was good enough for the role. So
Ooh.
they felt as if at the time that the people who were in leadership at the party were only giving me the tools that I needed to be successful instead of me reaching out to make sure that I was successful myself. So what they were always doing, what they were backhanding, they did these email campaigns where they was trying to figure out a way to overthrow me. They were going to create ways to create a separate Young Democrats of South Carolina. And basically, they always would reach out to the national and be like, well, we need to have this and we need to do that. And then when we would do an email exchange, they would email our national president. So it was always something.
Oh
I'm no
my
longer
goodness.
president, but I can tell you that everything that I tried to implement while I was president is what they are doing now. So they basically took the hard work that I tried to do and turn it into their own, but yet they still talk and smile in my face. How I overcame that was I just didn't deal with that group of people anymore once it was over. Because during the my tenure as president, I had no support at all,
Mm.
not even from other Black people. They didn't have much
Mm.
to say. So you have to remember that sometimes when you are in these organizations, that not even your own people will support you. So that it took me down a road of like, am I supposed to be doing this? Am I in the right sector? If I'm not going to have support, then why am I going to continue to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So that tenure ended. But in another instance, when I was on a large campaign, it became another situation where I'm not going to say I think I was smarter than the campaign manager, but I seemed to be able to open more doors than the campaign manager was able to do. So because of
Mm-hmm.
that, he always tried to find a way to stifle me, to make sure that I didn't outshine him or to make sure I didn't overpower him. So what I did to overcome that is I just kept doing the work, and I told myself I'm going to keep doing this work because what matters to me is that our candidate wins. So if
Yeah.
I get in trouble, I'd rather get in trouble on the flip side than beforehand. I'm not going to keep asking you for permission to do something that we should be doing. I'm going to get this job done no matter what. So I'll just handle the backlash on the end. So what I've just learned that you have to do is you just have to do your work because people are going to remember you for the work that you do
Yeah.
opposed to the work that you didn't do. So you
Yeah.
just have you just have to keep doing the work and making sure that people see you and realize, and just make sure that you keep your name good in the streets as well. So you do the work and keep your name
Yeah.
good, and people will always remember that.
I love the fact that you emphasize this point about reputation because at the end of the day, reputation is all you have in this game. And being really focused and clear about showing up in a way that maintains your reputation, that shows you as a leader, as a competent professional, as a person of ideas and integrity is so, so, so important. And, sadly, I have to say, I've been in that space with you where when you've been given a responsibility, maybe even a title and authority, and yet it seems like there's all these forces around you that are working against you and against what you're trying to do. And I'm sure other Black women listening to this conversation also have experienced that. And so, to you first, I want to say I'm sorry that you had to go through that. And I think this is why it's so important for us to always have a space of connection where we can be together and really also just hold each other accountable. Because it is not okay to be treated like that. Not only not okay as a Black woman, but frankly, I wouldn't want anybody to be treated like that. I mean, let's admit, working on these campaigns, baby, sometimes they are hard,
A
and you're
headache.
really out there in the muck, and it doesn't come between a 9 to 5 while you're also trying to have a family or do other things in your life. Everything kind of becomes all about this campaign. So to be making those kinds of sacrifice, even though you may be getting paid, you really just want some basic human respect. And really, to me, respect boils down to just a little kindness and a little loyalty. And the loyalty is really about, giving credit where credit is due. So I definitely appreciate you sharing that story. It almost gave me PTSD. I Years ago in the 90s, 90, I think it was 90, no, might have been 98. I can't even remember now. I was the deputy director for the Missouri Coordinated Campaign. And of course, they bring on the Black women when they having Black problems, right? So when they really need the Black community to show up, all of a sudden, y'all got a job. Okay.
Right, right.
So
For
that
hours
was me.
or something like that.
Yes, yes, yes. That was me. So I said, okay, I'm going to take on this challenge, largely because I really did believe in the candidate. And I really did think at the time that he was getting a bad rap in the community because of some misunderstood and frankly, and Chantel, you talk about this all the time, bad communication people who really were not getting out the message in the way that our community needed to hear it. So I took this on and immediately really got some brownie points for him and really elevated his favorability numbers within Black communities. But it was like the minute I started seeing the success happen was the minute that the shutdown came. So now all of a sudden that I get the numbers up, now the budget that we had talked about is no longer available. Now they no longer want me to put together the surrogate program that I had put together. Now they want to put all these restrictions on me, and I have to say, a good brother from Arkansas, I think he was from yeah, from Arkansas, helped me out. That recently passed actually, and he was kind of. I always called him the spook that sat by the door because I have no idea what he ever did for the Democratic Party. But he came down to one of my events and saw me in action and pulled me to the side and said, "Sister Holiday, if ever you need anything, you call me. We're going to work this out for you." And I thank God for him every day because he really helped me to understand two things in that moment. First, that politics is about relationships at the end of the day, and it's important to have friends. And important to build powerful relationships because they do help you out. And two, there's always a workaround. There's always a workaround. And if one way doesn't get it done, look for the, as my father used to say, if you can't go through the door, look for the window. If the window is sealed shut, look for the crack in the foundation. There's always a way to get in and get through the door. Um, and so that's kind of what we did, and that's what that reminded me of. So this has just been amazing. I want to remind people to please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, ask us questions through the chat. I wish we could have another way to communicate, but that's the best way we're going to do it now. So feel free to do that. Chantel, thank you for putting those links in the chat. Definitely encourage you all to check out our website at Sisters Lead, sistersvote.com. So we talked about some of the tragedies. I want to talk, no one gets in this business to stay stagnant. What are some key pieces of advice that you would give to women listening to this who have had their first campaign job or maybe had a couple of different jobs in politics, but now they kind of feel like they're feeling a little stagnant and they want to figure out what are some ways to kind of push through to the next level? What's advice you give people who are trying to figure out how to advance their careers? Bree?
So what I always tell people is always be a sponge, always be ever learning, always willing to take in information because you don't know everything. Just because you've done one
Mhm.
campaign doesn't make you the expert. And on
Yeah.
top of that, do trainings, do as many political trainings as you can do. I think I've done about 5, and I still don't think I know enough. So always do a training and always be a sponge, but also don't be afraid to be a volunteer still, right? So, say for instance, there's a campaign coming up. You may have not gotten hired for that campaign. So, volunteer. Why? Because they see you in action, and then a job with that may come later on. Say
Mhm.
for instance, if a campaign needs a fundraiser and you have no fundraising experience, if you have possibly did a training or go do a training, then they could possibly give you a starting point to get involved in fundraising because there's always a starting point with campaigns and no one comes into this game knowing how to do it effectively unless you probably went to school for like communications or something, but you don't go to school for to be a political director, right? So that's what my most of my background has been in, and being a political director comes with having relationships. So
Yeah.
on top of also make sure that you are a sponge and getting trainings, make sure that your relationships are solid. Make sure that you are reaching out to these elected officials. Make sure that these people see you doing the work. I always tell people, make sure people see you doing the work because that's the only way I was able to get my job with Congressman Clyburn. And that's what he told me in my interview. He was like, the only reason why I wanted to hire you because I know your political acumen and I have seen you work. I have seen you volunteer. So I know what you bring to the table and I know what you are able to offer. So just make sure that you are, and also make sure you build relationships with your elected officials, whether it's your congressperson, if they, morally are on your side. But if it's your congressional person, your Senate person, your state reps, etc., and go to their receptions. They always have events. Go there and network. Get involved with your local party. Get involved with your state party. Those are things I
Yeah.
always tell people to just make sure you stay involved, stay in sponge, and stay active.
I have to admit, you just tickled me to death, Bree, especially with the values piece, because let me tell you something. And this, I had to learn this the hard way. I know that sometimes you may find yourself in a really stretched financial situation, but it
Mhm.
really does not serve you to work with candidates or political organizations that are not serving your value.
Yeah.
It is a
Mhm.
soul sucking experience, and I can tell you this from my own experiences. It really diminishes you and damages you in ways that you
Mhm.
cannot even imagine. And so I really want to. Particularly, there's so many nuggets that you just gave, but I really want to highlight the piece about being aligned in terms of your values and your beliefs with the candidates and organizations that you're working with when you're in this political space. Because it will be that alignment sometimes that helps to motivate and inspire you to get through some of the tougher times. It
Mhm.
absolutely will. Chantel, what about you? What are your gems for success?
Um, Mine would be first and foremost, you are enough.
Mhm.
You are as smart as everybody else in that room.
Usually smarter. Did I
Yes.
say
Well, that too, but you
that?
are as smart as everybody else in that room. Um, Two, don't be embarrassed to be ambitious.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Go for yours because everybody else gonna go for theirs. Don't be the one that always has to sit back and say, well, no. It's okay if you decide that you want to be the president, run, go for it. If you want to run the organization, chart your path and go for it.
Yes.
Um, Black women don't have to be the workhorses. We can
Mhm.
be the leaders of the organization.
Yep.
So don't get relegated because people will use your skill and
Hmm.
propel other people to greatness. No, you need to get your own greatness. And I'm talking to myself as I do all of this.
Sometimes we have to talk to ourselves.
To build yourself a good sister network.
Hmm.
And for a whole bunch of reasons. One, because you're gonna need people to be your listening board, to give you good, solid advice. But you also want to have a network of sisters who will push you and stretch you.
Hmm.
And also, that helps your network because I always tell people I'm friends with Holly and I'm
Oh
friends
Lord.
with other folks, but I am literally one phone call away from the president because of who my friends are. I have
Mhm.
friends who can pick up the phone and call the president, or the president might call them. So
Mhm.
I consider that is the stretch of my network. So when I really want something, I know in my network, if I really truly have a desire, I have the network to stretch me to whatever my goal is, or
Yeah.
that can get me to that goal.
Yeah.
So, and all of these people are just people I've naturally made built friendships with. Um, but it's okay to have some transactional relationships as well because we don't like to tell people that. You need to have a set of people in your circle that just might be a transactional relationship. That's okay. They can't be your only circle,
Yeah.
but you do need to have some of them in your circle as well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. That's so good, Chantel. The networking, I can't tell you. I can truly say that probably 80 to 85% of the work that I've gotten over the years has been because of my relationships.
mhm,
It's been either because uh, someone knew of my work and said, we need her to be in this space to help us, or because someone referred me to someone and said, you should check her out. She's really dope. And I think that
I,
is so important. And I think as part of that, it's understanding that you can't just get comfortable with just having one network. So I also want to highlight that point. I came from Missouri, and yes, as in many localities, politics happen all the time in Missouri, like they happen everywhere else. But at that particular time in my life, it was my ambition to work on national campaigns and to work with presidential candidates and to work on really big races. And Unfortunately, while when I started politics, Missouri was a Democratic state. Well, y'all know the history. Over the course of the next 10 years, it slips more and more into Republican spaces. And because I was coming from at that point what people perceived to be a red state, they didn't really have value in the work that I was doing, as if the whole slip away from the Democratic Party for Missouri and laid on my little black shoulders. And so a part of what I ended up having to do, to your point, Chantel, is network, 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 network. And I also want to blend that with the point that you made, Bree, which is show up to stuff. You would be surprised the power of the show up. And I'm actually a little bit of a couch potato. I really don't really want to go nowhere. I'm loving the pandemic for the aspect of I can sit on my couch and talk to everybody I need to talk to. But I have to say, one of my mentors, Melanie Campbell, and working with her for almost 10 years as one of my clients, I learned from her the power of the show up.
Yeah.
Because when you show up in the room, magic can really happen. You show up in the room, it is not only your opportunity to kind of learn stuff that you wouldn't learn if you wasn't in the room. It's not only your opportunity to meet people that you wouldn't meet if you weren't in the room. It's really your opportunity to demonstrate that you're the kind of sister that shows up for other people, and people appreciate that because there's a lot of people who don't show up, and so showing up is important. And it just really means so much. And
Holly,
yeah, go ahead, Chantel.
I wanted to drop in because I had one more point
Go ahead.
that
I didn't
I
mean to
forgot.
interrupt you. I got so excited.
Well, because you brought no, as you were talking, I thought about one more thing. Um,
Mhm.
and in your network, make sure to get you a mentor or mentors.
Yes, I would. So talk about that, and I want to ask Bree this question too. Who are some of your mentors, and how have they helped shape your journey in politics?
So my mentor is
Oh, I'm sorry, Bree. I cut Chantel off. I wanted you to just add that into what you were saying about mentors.
oh
You
my
can finish. Listen, we get excited, girl. We just start talking all over each other. But anyway, Chantel, please finish your point and then Bree kick in.
okay.
Well, um, have a I just have a number of them, and they bring in different things.
Hmm.
So there is one that really helps me in terms of confidence, making sure, because I will get into, I don't know if I want to do this. This is this, and so I always have someone who helps me over that hurdle,
Hmm.
as I so that I can walk through it.
Yeah.
Um, have some local people here local women who are who've run for office, who have been in office, to talk to them about politics just in general, because politics, there are some things that are very consistent about politics, but it's also some things that are very different, because local races are different from state races, that are different from federal races. And so, and they're different networks. So I have mentors that are at the different levels, so that if I decide I want to shift over to this group, I have my mentor who also brings their network with
Yeah.
them. So
Yeah.
I consider my network expanded, because I'm starting to build relationships with other people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, Bree, your turn. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay. So a mentor of mine has been Jamie Harrison. He started being my mentor in 2013 through this program called NLC. And after that, because they would place you with mentors, and he became my mentor. So it was a relationship that blossomed and grew from there. Hence me working on his campaign. There have been other people like Kay Kuntz from South Carolina. She is a DNC party official, so she has been like a mentor, and people like Gilda Cobb Hunter, who has poured into me as well. But I'm looking for another female mentor on a national level, somebody who is like by the name of Holly Holiday. That's considered my current boss. So I'm in the market for a new mentor on the national level, no longer the local level. But those have been some people that have poured into me. And the amazing thing about those mentors is they would stay on me. Like what I neglected to tell you guys is I ran for DNC committee woman in the middle of working for Jamie. And Kay Koontz would stay on me on things that I needed to do. Like, you need to be posting a video or you need to call these delegates. I'm like, well, Kay, I got to do this for Jamie. You want me to call 436 delegates? So you need people like that who will stay on you and people who will pour into you and help open doors for you that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do. So if I needed to call Jamie and be like, well, look, I want to go to this DNC event, but I wasn't able to get a ticket. Can you get me a ticket? Bam. Somebody to put your name on the list.
That part.
That part. Well, I see we have a question in the chat, but I don't see it yet. So, Chantel, can you read it for us?
Yes, we have a question from Asari. Asari said she is starting late and would like to make a full transition into politics. She has many years of experience in communications, and her skills are transferable to politics. Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
So she asked, is it even possible to bring these skills into the field without starting from the bottom? And outside of joining local organizations and volunteering, do you have any other tips for networking or being competitive in this space?
Lord, yes, we have a lot. I suspect. I'm gonna kick it off. I'm gonna say first on the networking, and actually, Bree, I'm still in this one from you. Join organizations. Join organizations and attend their learnings, their webinars, their meetings, as well as their events. It is a fantastic way to get engaged. As far as not having to start at the bottom per se, this is really about, and as a communications professional, sorry, I bet you will appreciate this. This is just about positioning and marketing. It is, the thing about it is politics moves at the speed of light. It really does. It is a very fast paced industry. You blink, the wind has changed. And so I say that because even in hiring, things happen super, super fast. And so always be marketing and have a really clear, whether it's your resume, your cover letter, and most especially your LinkedIn. When I was recommending people to work at the White House as part of the transition team, they didn't even want me to send no resume. They just said, send me their LinkedIn profile. And they start with that. So just make sure that in everything that's out there that you're using to market yourself in the job market, that you are really focusing on your experience and making it like plain as day how your experience is going to help whatever organization that you're working for work for. And so just be really, 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 really intentional, and you can get there. Other thoughts about how we can help Asari and give her some pointers?
I would say I'm going to make a few suggestions because while I'm also a mentee, I also have a set of mentees. So I'm going to give you the advice that I give my mentees. One, set your target. Where do you want to go? So, do you want to work on a campaign? Do you want to work for a political organization? Because your pathways are going to be different based on where you set your target. So, first thing is decide where you're going, because then we can roadmap it from there. So for example, if you decide that you want to work for maybe the Democratic National Party, or the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, well, they always have communication jobs that are open. So you want to make sure that you have signed up, that you're getting notifications of those jobs.
Mhm.
But when those job openings come available, you're going to have your communications experience, but they might want to see something directly related to politics. A really quick and fast and dirty way to get you some experience is volunteer to write some stuff for a campaign. Go find your local party because they're going to always need some communications people. Go there and you'll be able to write or do whatever you need to do for them. And so when you apply for that other job, you will be able to take not only your other experience, but that experience working with your local party or working for a campaign. And it doesn't have to be long. You could work for a campaign for a couple of months and produce 20 or 30 pieces. All of that stuff you'll be able to use um, to 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 bolster your there's a word, it just escaped me, but when you send in all of your stuff for that job, because they're going to want to see what have you done. And a lot of times you do have and you may not need any of that. But I would say start looking at the jobs where you want to go to see what it is that they are looking for.
Mhm.
Here's another tip, and I'm gonna piggyback off of what Holly said about LinkedIn. Go and look at the people who are working where you want to go and look at their resume. Look and see what they have on there. And you don't have to duplicate it, but you at least want to get an idea of what they're looking for in the candidates that they are hiring, because that helps you map your pathway. You
Mhm.
don't have to start at the bottom. You may be able to piggyback right to the top. The other thing is look and see who's there and look and see who knows them,
Mhm. That's a good one.
and start reaching out to them and connecting with them and getting you connected to the people who work there. Because one way to get a job is to know the people who already work there.
Now that part, Bree.
I was just gonna say apply. So say you want to work on a certain job or a certain campaign, just apply. But also, if you know of any current communication professionals that are doing stuff in the political sector, then I would have a conversation with them. Just talk to them, get some advice for them, give them your resume. Always keep your resume handy and updated. I've had to change my resume so many times since I've worked for Jamie. So make sure you keep it updated and look at how other communication professionals are doing their resume within the political sector and work on that. Also, have writing samples handy because people are going to be looking for that. And then, like Chantel said, just make sure you are intertwined with the party, the local party. If they have a comms director, reach out to them, get some advice for them. But what I will also advise you to do is get on some of these job boards, like Inclusive. They send out many, many jobs, the Black Beltway, jobs that are left. There are a lot of job boards that send out jobs that have a lot of comms positions available. In some of these training, I think this is a group called the National Democratic Training Organization. They have training specifically for digital in the comm space. So look at stuff like that as well. And then the DNC does a train to trainer program. So that might be helpful also.
Yeah. So in terms of actual opportunities, uh, let me tell you how I used to do it, and this really kept me in business for years when I was doing specifically campaigns. I know when all the filing dates are for pretty much every election you can imagine. And when I see these candidates, listen, the competition don't take advantage of this environment that we're in. Number one, everybody's looking for black women. They finally got it that we are competent and we are the secret sauce. So there's all kinds of organizations, campaigns, the party. Everybody wants a black woman. So that's number one. But also take advantage of the fact that there are all these candidates running for office. Every single candidate needs somebody, communications help, and so forth. So take advantage of the fact that the people are running. Let me tell you, the people are running.
Yep.
And this allows you to really develop a track record. It may be that you take, and also think about how you can stack and rack. So, for instance, sometimes, especially when I'm doing smaller campaigns and off cycles, I may have two or three campaigns that I'm working on doing very similar things. So, also think about what your niche is. Are you digital communication? Are you about content creation? Are you more about media relationships? Are you about marketing and putting together marketing materials? Figure out where your niche is and how you can do that in multiple spaces at one time. A bit of working on a campaign is having an entrepreneurial mindset. Now, if you're interested in working for an organization, like at a committee or some of the progressive organizations, then I think you have to think a little bit more long term. But for people who are specifically interested in campaign work, you better track those filing dates. Listen, I'm here in Maryland. We have 13 people running for governor. And I mention these larger races because the larger the races, the larger the budgets, and the more likely they are to have multiple people on these campaigns. But also look at the filing dates because that allows you to reach out to and build relationship with people who ain't got no people.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best strategies in this game, and I can tell you from personal experience, I got people now that I have worked with since they ran for dog catcher or school board, and now they've run for higher and higher offices. And guess what? They call me every single time. I don't even do campaign politics no more, and they calling me. I just had somebody that I literally worked with when they ran for city council about 12 years ago, who became mayor and now wants to run for Congress and is asking me to run their campaign. The answer is no for me. But the point is that you start working with people as they're entering politics and you do a good job for them. The one thing you know about politicians is they have something on their mind that's important. It's called re-election. They'll
Mm-hmm.
run again. And even for those that lose, at least not as frequently for Black women, but we do know that in general, most folks that lose, want at least 50% of them will run again. So this is a good way to build relationships, and don't be afraid to cold call a candidate that you see has filed in an area that you have expert, a geographic area that you may know well, where you know the press or you know the landscape, and say, "Hey, I can help you out."
Holly,
Yes, ma'am. More
just
questions?
to, no, just to add in because you know, I started out talking about this from a space where you want to go and get a job, but the other space that is also available is you have your own company and you get a contract.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a consultant, you can be a contractor, and you can work for multiple campaigns or multiple organizations because they have money and they
Mm-hmm.
hire consultants and contractors. And so you have to just kind of figure out what your space is, because just thinking about the last campaigns that I have worked on, um, we had one um, consultant who was not only working with a campaign that I was working with, but she was working with multiple campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was getting, you know, $2,000 from a month from this campaign, $1,000 a month from this campaign, $500 a month from this campaign,
Yeah.
another $1,000 a month from this campaign.
Yeah.
And then she had another set of skills. So she did a whole nother thing for the campaign that the campaign paid her, five or six, seven, 8,000 or more dollars, depending on the volume that they wanted. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to work for anybody. You may be able to contract your skills out. And as Holly said, many of the people who are running at the local level and the state level are looking for people. Um, I kind of do this um, on the weekends and at night. And even doing it that much, at the end of every campaign I've worked on, somebody has come to me and said, "Oh, I know somebody who's looking for a campaign manager." I have 3 offers right now, and I'm like, "Y'all, I can't do that full time, or maybe can I?" But
Yeah.
there are people who are looking, and if you do a good job, because there's not that many folks, people talk and they'll say, well, what about this person? Or I know this person. Or if you write something or make a video or take
Mm-hmm.
a picture, um, people will see that work and they're always like, who did that? Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. Who did
Yeah.
that? And they always ask.
Yeah.
So there's a way in. You just got to
Yeah.
decide which way is the way that you want to go in.
Now I need to say one thing though, and I said this. I did a workshop yesterday with specifically with consultants in mind. So I really need to say this. Listen, being a consultant is a business, people. So
Yes.
that means you need to set yourself up as a business. You will only attract contracts as a business if you are presenting yourself as a business. So it will take some investment on your part to ensure that you have your business paperwork in order. You need a separate EIN. I recommend, if you don't get a website, that you have a separate business presence on social media, that you have a business email address, that you have a business bank account because you want to be keeping your money separate from your personal money. And you definitely want to get with an attorney at least one good time to put together some standard contract language. Because you need to be careful and clear, because there are some ripoff artists out here, and I got a lot of stories of consultants and frankly even staffers who get on these campaigns and then they don't get paid correctly. So it's really important that you get your business in order should you seek to be a consultant. That's probably, if you take, if for those of you who are interested in working in politics as a consultant, that's probably the best advice I can give you. Because being a business will allow you to really operate in that vein and really focus in on, again, the skills that you're going to provide. So should you choose the business route or the consultant route, be clear that you are in fact a business, and along with that, be sure to save money so that you can pay your taxes. That's part of being a business.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
trust me, Uncle Sam does not care that you are out here trying to save the world when the taxes are due. The other thing is, think about the ways that, be really in tune, from a jobs perspective, especially if you're thinking about campaigns, about the cycle of things. Because the other thing about creating relationship with candidates is, if they win, now they got to set up an administration. And so those are other opportunities that you may have to be involved in work as well. Either and they all have political directors, communications people, policy people, and things of that nature. And so, really, connecting with candidates is really important. Oh my God, I cannot believe we have actually almost been in this conversation for a whole hour. The time has flown by. I was like, woohoo. I want to say one more thing before I forget, and that is on the spirit of networking, and specifically to my sister Bree. Listen, I am happy to mentor you, but I suspect, as is true in all good mentor relationships, we will end up mentoring each other. Um, And to that extent, I totally believe in networking. So I'm going to walk my talk, and I'm going to invite all of you all to look me up and connect with me on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn quite regularly. I promise I will accept your invitation. I would love to stay connected to you all, learn more about you. I'm real easy to find. I'm pretty much the only Holly Holiday everywhere. So you can find me. I'm really easy. You can also follow me on social media. I'm happy to connect with you that way as well. But honestly, connecting with me on LinkedIn really puts you in my networking circle. I often post job opportunities on my
Mhm.
LinkedIn from the clients that I personally represent, who are looking for things. I also have access to a lot of RFPs for those of you all who are interested in consulting work. I don't post those as often, mainly just because I literally get so many. I would be posting every other minute, and I got a lot of businesses to run and nonprofits to take care of. But if you are interested in RFPs, I can definitely connect you with that as well. And I also encourage you to connect with the other folks that are in this room with us. And of course, it shouldn't go without saying, but I'm gonna say it. Connect with Chantel and Bree. They are amazing. That's why we have them here for you today. So just make sure that you use even this opportunity. This is the opportunity to connect with each other and stay connected. Share what you're doing, give updates, let us know what's going on. Even if you just post every now and again on LinkedIn, hey, this is what I'm doing now. So excited to be doing it. Learning a lot. That triggers stuff. When I see that in the post, because for me, I think of myself as a connector. And I promise you, if I go in a room and it ain't no black women in the room, first thing I do is hit my phone and hit my LinkedIn to see what black woman am I going to encourage, inspire, and motivate to show up in this room. Because in my opinion, we need black women in all the spaces, in all the spaces. So I want. Oh, go ahead? Did you want to jump in?
I was
I'm
just gonna say, oh, go ahead, Bree.
No, I'm just saying, yes, we need black women everywhere.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
So I
Well,
go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say that also in terms of connecting,
Yeah,
um, Holly and I are also on Clubhouse, and we talk
there you go.
every Tuesday at
We
8
do.
p.m.
Yes,
Generally, every
yes,
Tuesday at 8 p.m. on
yes.
Clubhouse. We are members of Win with Black Women Club on Clubhouse, and we do a weekly talk where we talk about politics from a Black woman's perspective.
Yes, we
And
do.
so, if you just want to come and talk, um,
And share your perspective, not as restrictive. So we invite everybody to come and be a part of our conversation, not
mhm.
just us. So come hang out with us. That's a good plug. Good. That's see, this is why I have Chantel on the team because she knows I be forgetting some of this stuff. This is good.
Well, let me do a plug as well. So
Yeah.
I can't keep up with them with Clubhouse, but with Sister Lead, Sister Vote, we have some trainings that will come up in
Oh, that's right.
2022. So make sure that you are plugged into our website. Please sign up on those links that were posted in the chat. We'll be doing such thing as op-ed trainings, which will help Black women amplify their voices for newspapers, news articles, etc. Because that's an avenue for you to also, possibly be on TV. Because a lot of times people will do an op-ed and a producer will call you to be like, hey, can you come on CNN to discuss what you just wrote in such and such? So make sure you keep in tune with that. And then if you're going to be running for office, let us know so we can figure out how we can support you. So just make sure that you stay engaged with us through Sister Lead, Sister Vote. And I'll also give y'all my email address when we wrap. So if you want to keep in touch that way, because I do not know my LinkedIn name by heart, but I'll give it to you once we connect via email.
Sounds good. Well, listen, and again, you see evidence of why I have these amazing women joining me for this conversation today. So we're almost out of time. So I want to wrap. I always like ending on an up note, and so I would love for you all to share what's inspiring you to be in politics today, and if you could just share a little inspiration as we leave. I believe in self care, and part of self care is inspiration and motivation. So, what's inspiring you to be in politics today? Chantel?
Oh, Bree. I gotta think about it for a second.
Oh no.
Inspiring me is basically how I grew up and how I believe I was in the sixth grade. My mom had breast cancer and my father was dealing with sickle cell really, really bad. And they both had to get out of work. So growing up, having two parents who were not able to work because of their illnesses and they were not able to get any help. I remember them sending a letter to our congressman at the time. He wouldn't help. I remember us having Medicaid insurance and just watching them basically suffer and not be able to get the help. And I became very angry. And I was like, I'm going to change this and I'm going to run for office. I'm going to make sure everyone has access to health care and people have great jobs. So
Mm.
it's little things like that. And then watching family members not be able to have a proper access and pathway to higher education. So,
Mm.
a lot of times we preach that we should go and get college degrees, but if you do not have the proper access and pathway to it, then it won't happen. So, such things as that, and then being in South Carolina where we have lack of infrastructure from lack of broadband access, there are still people in the state who have dial up access. There are still people in the state who doesn't have proper running water. So it's little things like that that have made me realize that I need to stay in this game to make sure that I can help change it. Because a lot of us get in this game and get a title and become all about self, but I really want to do it to be a true public servant.
Chantel, what's inspiring you?
Well, it's a lot of the same things that Bree mentioned, but in I tell people I've had a whole bunch of careers, so I switch careers every decade or so. And in one of my past lives, what I found is that people really don't understand the structures, how our government works, how it impacts them, and what power they have. And so, I would spend a lot of time try to get them to understand it and train people. And I share information so that people will understand. Because a lot of people say, I don't do politics. And I say, well, you live, so you do politics.
Yeah.
Everything that we do is political, and
Mm.
everything that impacts us is political.
Mm.
Somebody somewhere is making a decision about something. You may not understand what that chain looks like, but you need to understand that there is a chain. And
Yeah.
so that is what helps me or inspires me to do this, because we need to understand. And so, when I ask people about politics and they say, I don't do politics, I said, pull out your check stub and look at those taxes. Baby, you do politics every day because it's coming
Mm.
out your check. And if
Mm.
something is coming out your check, you need to be talking to somebody and know and understand why it's coming out of your check, because they getting paid whether you're paying attention to it or not. So you need to start paying attention, because it may make a difference in what that check looks like for you. And I
Yeah.
just I think people just take a lot for granted, and
Yeah.
we've got to talk about it. We've got to integrate it. So, recently, I have a child who is in grad school. And so she sent me a text and she said, "Oh my gosh, we just got a letter from the administration that says we're going to get a refund because the administration got some money and they're paying off some fees for us." I said, "Yeah, they got some CARES Act money." And so she was like, "Woo, I just, I'm so happy. I need to thank the school." I said, "No, no, 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 no. You need to thank yourself, because you actually went and voted for somebody. And because you voted for that person voted to send some money and gave that money to your school. And then your school chose to give that money to you." I said, "You
Mm.
need to think about the impact of your vote, because those are the things that happen when you choose to vote for people who have the same values as you."
100%. Well, let me tell you, I am inspired by both of you. I am inspired, and special shout out to Asari and Raquel Rocky in the chat. I'm inspired by you all. And in general, I have to say, I am inspired by Black women. I am inspired by our grit and our determination, our savviness, our smarts, and all doing it by being beautiful, cool, calm, and grace under pressure. And so that inspires me each and every day. It's definitely why I do the work that I do. And I know that when we show up at our best, that we do matter and change the world. It is essentially the definition of why we know that representation matters. I want to thank both of you all for being an amazing part of this conversation. I want to remind those folks that have joined us to please feel free to connect with us. Check out our website at sistersleadsistersvote.org. We have lots of information up there and more to come. 2022 is going to be a very active year. So we'll have more in the way of research and more in the way of trainings and more in the way of events. Bree, you're about to be very, very busy, my friend.
Yes.
'Cause we'll just have more, and more. But most importantly, we hope that this conversation has added a little bit of value to your work and to your career and the work that you're doing as political operatives in this space. We know it ain't easy. We know it ain't easy, but we appreciate you and your leadership. Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote is here to help and support in any way we can. So please connect with us. We hope you've enjoyed this. I believe it is, while we have done this live, I believe it will also be available for replay later. So feel free to share this link and this information with your friends. They may find something of value from this as well. I also encourage you to check out a couple of the other sessions that I hosted. One specifically around looking for work and the insider's views for people who are seeking employment. And then the one I mentioned earlier about consultants. This has been amazing. I thank all of you. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you for spending your Saturday evening with us. Go have some fun because that's what it's all about, too. Time to let your hair down and hang loose for a little bit. Thank you, Bree and Chantel, for this wonderful conversation.
And you guys, if you want to
You.
email me, you can email me at bree@sistersleadsistersvote.org. That'd be BRE, and then sistersleadsistersvote.org. And thank you guys.
Awesome. See you soon.
Thank,
Bye.
thank